Today's source material outlines a blueprint for a globally dispersed, tech-first proprietary trading firm that uses a network of everyday people following strict, automated, on-screen prompts to execute high-accuracy trades. Jump right in with your first piece of feedback.
The fundamental necessity of the human execution layer requires deeper justification given the highly automated nature of the firm's signal generation and risk management.
Right.
Because, the material meticulously explains how the algorithm does the heavy lifting, It scans the instruments, it decides exactly when to open a position, it dictates the lot size, and it just hard codes the stop loss and take profit levels.
It explicitly says it leaves zero room for creative improvisation.
Exactly. Zero room. But then it completely fails to explain the underlying mechanism of why a human is actually required to sit at a screen and click a button.
Yeah, a direct server-to-server connection could execute that exact same automated signal instantaneously.
Right, instantaneously.
So there's this huge logical vacuum at the very center of the business model. It's like designing a state-of-the-art self-driving car, but then requiring a passenger to manually press a plastic button on the dashboard before the software is allowed to change lanes.
That is a perfect analysis.
What does that mean for the firm's overall architecture? Because if the system is genuinely smart enough to know when to trade, introducing a biological component just naturally introduces latency, which feels totally counterintuitive.
It fundamentally contradicts the pursuit of a trading edge. In financial markets, latency is a direct cost.
Absolutely.
And the firm is taking on this immense operational overhead, recruiting, training, monitoring thousands of non-traders to execute a strategy that already boasts an 80 to 90% accuracy rate on its own.
So what is the suggestion here?
They need to clarify the specific, strategic, regulatory, or narrative value add of keeping a human in the loop. The entire technical architecture points overwhelmingly toward full automation.
Right, so if I were the author, I'd look at their target demographic, like the teachers, nurses, veterans they mentioned. If this human layer is basically a socioeconomic mission to democratize wealth, they need to state that explicitly as the primary brand moat.
Yes, rather than framing it solely as an execution strategy.
Exactly. Because if the human element is actually the product's social mission, it reframes the narrative and completely justifies the technical inefficiency.
Well, framing it as a social mission solves the marketing question, but we also have to look at the legal architecture.
Oh, interesting. Like a workaround?
Yeah, they might be attempting a regulatory workaround here. In many jurisdictions, operating a fully automated black box algorithmic trading system at scale using retail money triggers really intense scrutiny.
You'd need highly specialized licensing for that.
Exactly. But a manual, human-initiated execution model might bypass those specific restrictions. So if these everyday people are essentially functioning as a structural legal firewall, the text needs to outline that legal advantage explicitly.
I hear that, but relying on a retail user's blind click as a legal firewall sounds like a massive regulatory gamble. What happens when a state regulator looks right through that dummy click and determines the human is just an inefficient API?
That is a risk, yes.
The author really needs to detail a specific operational scenario where this human circuit breaker actually provides tangible value. Like the text mentions sitting out major scheduled news, but what about sudden global events?
That's a great concrete example. Automated data feeds process quantifiable numbers, right? But they can lag or just misinterpret sudden qualitative data.
Like breaking geopolitical news on a TV screen.
Exactly. A surprise central bank announcement broadcast on live television.
Right, so a human sitting in a trading lab looking at a Bloomberg terminal sees that breaking headline. The algorithm just looks at price action and says buy, but the human understands the broader context, realizes the market is going to gap violently, and hits decline.
That is a super compelling scenario, but if the human acts as a necessary circuit breaker, the system has to structurally empower them to do so.
Which it currently doesn't.
No, right now the mandate is that users must follow the prompts blindly to keep their funded status. That's a direct contradiction. They can't be a fail-safe and an unquestioning drone at the same time.
Yeah, they really got to define that mechanical purpose. Okay, so a key theme running through this material seems to be the author's belief that strict UI can engineer out human error.
Which brings us to the next point.
Yes, the assumption that rigid software constraints will entirely neutralize human psychological friction during live trading execution is overly optimistic.
Overly optimistic is a polite way of putting it. The document extensively outlines these systemic guardrails, right? Like cutting traders off for the day if they overclick.
Right, but it significantly underestimates the granular friction. We're talking about human hesitation, panic, fatigue.
And just the physical latency between a prompt appearing and a stressed human reacting to it.
Exactly, especially during the high-accuracy intraday trades the firm relies on.
Are we really assuming regular people will act like emotionless robots just because a screen tells them to? Let's break down the micro behaviors. The screen flashes open 0.5 lots Euro USD now, and the user has to physically click the mouse.
The blueprint just assumes compliance is instantaneous.
But human beings have profound physiological responses to financial loss.
Right, and in intraday scalping, entry precision is everything. Imagine a user who just watched 3 consecutive trades hit their stop loss.
Their heart rate is spiking.
Cortisol, adrenaline, it's all flooding their system. So when that fourth prompt appears, the UI might prevent them from doubling their position size in revenge, which is great.
Yeah, that's a good safeguard.
But the software cannot prevent them from staring at the screen for 4 seconds, just totally paralyzed by the fear of another loss, before their finger finally clicks confirm.
And in a fast-moving intraday market, 4 seconds is an eternity. The spread widens, price action moves, and that hesitation becomes devastating slippage. The trade's expectancy just flips from positive to negative.
Entirely because the author treated the human mind as a perfectly logical extension of the software.
Right, so what is the suggestion to fix this?
They need to incorporate psychological buffers and behavioral stress testing directly into the system's design and the beta simulation physics.
How do you do that without just drowning in qualitative data? The text mentions they log every prompt response pair to refine the UI.
They have to move beyond basic clicks. Introduce a specific psychological stress testing phase in the simulation cohort that measures click hesitation metrics.
Oh, so tracking the exact milliseconds it takes a user to confirm a prompt after a recent string of losses?
Yes, or after a massive unexpected win. If the data shows a user's reaction time degrades by 300% after a losing streak, the firm suddenly has actionable data on human behavioral decay.
Wow, that totally changes how you evaluate a trader. It's not just, did they click the right button, but can their nervous system maintain speed over a 2-hour session?
Exactly.
But wait, let me push back slightly. If the 80 to 90% accuracy target is so fragile that a 2-second human delay completely breaks it, isn't the underlying strategy inherently flawed for this model?
That is precisely why this latency data is critical. The firm must design the prompt timing to explicitly account for human latency, ensuring that the accuracy target isn't reliant on sub-second reaction speeds.
So the strategy has to be robust enough to survive a 3-second hesitation.
Right. And furthermore, they need active interventions in the UI. Build a mandatory cooldown or a gamified compliance check into the UI after a sequence of heavy market volatility.
So instead of throwing the next prompt at a panicked user, the system actively steps in to reset their emotional state before the next prompt is issued.
Exactly. Force a 60-second screen freeze. Make them type out a phrase or just physically step away.
That makes the operational blueprint substantially more resilient. Okay, let's look at the macro level. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that rolling out financial skills labs in local neighborhoods will build brand trust and provide an inclusive distribution model.
Right. The transition from a highly controlled digital environment to physical brick-and-mortar franchises introduces immense operational overhead and risks completely undermining the carefully constructed regulatory boundaries.
Because these physical locations are supervised by locals who coach on basic money habits, like getting out of consumer debt, while simultaneously hosting live trading sessions on firm capital in the exact same building.
Yes. And earlier in the text, the author brilliantly separates the personal finance coaching from the prop trading. The coaching explicitly avoids investment advice, and the trading uses firm capital to avoid unregistered broker-dealer status.
So on paper, the legal firewalls look robust.
On paper. But the weakness is the physical execution.
placing basic consumer debt counseling and high-stakes proprietary trading under the same physical roof, supervised by the same local franchisee, creates massive brand confusion.
It's an optics nightmare.
It invites intense regulatory scrutiny, practically blurring the very lines the author worked so hard to draw.
Think about the vulnerable individual walking into that strip mall storefront. They're stressed, drowning in credit card debt, desperate for budgeting help.
Right.
And while they sit at a desk discussing debt consolidation, across the room they hear a bell ring because someone just made $500 trading Euro USD. The visual optics create a predatory funnel.
That visual overlap overrides any legal waiver. A state securities regulator won't care about the fine print on the disclosure form. They're going to view the debt coaching as an unregistered solicitation mechanism to funnel desperate people into a high-risk trading operation.
And we haven't even talked about the franchisees. The text assumes a local supervisor will flawlessly maintain this legal boundary, but human nature takes over.
The liability is devastating. Imagine a well-meaning supervisor saying to a debt coaching client, "Hey, if you get your credit score up, you can come over to the trading desk and make real money to pay off that debt."
Boom. The moment that is spoken aloud, the firm has violated securities laws regarding solicitation.
Exactly. The local supervisor becomes a nexus point connecting two heavily regulated, fundamentally opposed financial activities.
So how do they fix this physical scaling issue?
The suggestion is to reevaluate the physical franchise model in favor of scalable digital communities. Pivot the financial skills labs concept into digital guilds.
Oh, using platforms like Discord or custom virtual environments?
Yes, that entirely eliminates real estate overhead and the physical franchisee compliance risks.
But what if physical locations are an absolute must for their brand ethos?
Then they must strictly bifurcate the branding and physical spaces of the educational and trading arms. Mandate two completely separate entities.
So you build a community center for financial literacy and then a secure, restricted access execution hub solely for authorized prop trading.
Exactly. Ensuring supervisors in one room never cross over into the other, and create distinct, non-overlapping contracts and brand names for both businesses.
So local regulators do not perceive the debt coaching as a funnel for unregistered securities activities.
Precisely.
Okay, we've covered some really critical structural ground today. Just to quickly recap our three main takeaways. First, clarify the specific strategic, regulatory, or narrative value add of keeping a human in the loop when the technical architecture points toward full automation.
Right.
Second, incorporate psychological buffers into the UI to account for the granular friction of human hesitation and latency, rather than just relying on technical limits.
Absolutely essential.
And finally, reevaluate the physical franchise model, either by pivoting to digital guilds or strictly bifurcating the physical spaces to protect the firm's operational agility and regulatory firewalls.
I really just want to add that the architecture here is incredibly ambitious, but resolving these mechanical friction points will ensure the system can actually survive contact with live markets and real regulators.
We highly encourage the author to take these actionable adjustments, implement them, and submit your revised blueprint back to us for another round of feedback. Remember, when you are building a state-of-the-art self-driving car, every single button on the dashboard needs a rock-solid reason to exist. Make sure your passengers know exactly why they are the ones being asked to push it.